Hello, lovely listener, and welcome to the Aardvark Swift podcast. I'm James Bowers, and I'm part of the marketing team here at Aardvark Swift. Throughout this series, we'll be speaking to game studios, initiatives, and industry professionals about all things video games, from tips on recruitment and how to get into this career path, to studio cultures and projects to get involved in. This month, I'm speaking with Arden Aspinall and Jon Seymour of Rebellion North, a growing developer within the Rebellion family with a history of co-development prowess and programmer-heavy skills. We discuss learning from the past, going through a successful acquisition, and why it is important to be inquisitive and ask questions.
Hi there, I'm Jon Seymour. I'm senior producer here at Rebellion North.
What does your role as senior producer involve? I'm sure there's no typical days, but...
My job involved the day-to-day running of the team project-wise, making sure everything's on schedule and on budget. Over the last couple of months with us being in lockdown with COVID, it's impacted the team a little bit, but not as much as I thought, which is great and testament to the team. Every day we have a daily stand-up over Zoom, because obviously it's nice to speak to people still face-to-face. Checking out that everyone's all right, dealing with any issues that will happen not only at North. Obviously, we're part of a group, part of a bigger machine. We have studios in Oxford, Runcorn and Warwick. So, yeah, having to keep a check on what's going on there as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And what about you, Arden? What's your role?
I'm studio head of Rebellion North. My day-to-day life is very, very flexible. Some days it can be coming up with creative thinkings for difficult problems the team are having. My background is very technically orientated, and I quite enjoy coming up with creative solutions. It can be making sure the team's happy. We run a tight ship here in terms of we're not just work colleagues, we're a team that we consider each other friends, we've got each other's back. So that's quite an important part of my day-to-day, really making sure everything's ship-shape and Bristol fashion. Just moved into our new studio, so that's quite exciting as well. So there's been lots of things, especially with creating safety for our staff, making sure they're safe and feel comfortable in the new place. We're lucky because we've got a brand new refurbished building. A lot of people are quite keen to move back in, and because it's far bigger than what we need, there's lots of space for social distancing. And then I'm also the conduit to talking to the other studios. I'm on regular calls with the studios in Oxford, Runcorn and Warwick, giving our studio's opinion on certain problems and seeing where we can help out. If another studio's got a problem, we're always keen to get in there and help be part of the solution.
Yeah, that's great. Sort of all support each other. And I can imagine it's a bit of not a logistical nightmare, but trying to get everyone back sort of slowly, as well as moving offices.
Yeah.
And how long have you been at the studio?
So basically, Rebellion North was TikTok Games, which was my company. We formed in 2006 and we were acquired in late 2018 by Rebellion. It was quite exciting that we could work on more of their titles and IPs. We were part of the Rebellion group. We had a skill set which kind of complemented what Rebellion was needing at the time. It just made sense. It also allowed us to jumpstart our long-term strategy for TikTok Games as well, in terms of working on next generation hardware, bigger projects, working more closely with the Rebellion team. There was obviously logistics when we were a separate company in terms of IP and copyright issues and things like that. And we've been working with them for 5 years, and it was just a nice fit. We liked the people we worked with, so it seemed like a bit of a no-brainer at the time. Technically, I've been in Rebellion North for 2 years, but if you include the TikTok years, it's 14 years. That's the same for quite a lot of the people who work here.
And what about you, Jon? How long have you been at Rebellion?
Well, obviously, same story. I've known Arden since the early 90s. I was Arden's first employee back at his first company. So on and off, we've worked together, I think 18 out of my 25 years in the industry. So I worked for TikTok Game. I think I came in 2012 or something, so 8 years, roughly something like that. We worked well together.
I was going to say, I picked up the phone one day for Jon because I just realised that most of my time was spent managing the projects and less time doing things that I like doing, which was effectively fixing problems, writing code. So I picked up the phone and I was happy to come back and join the team. We were going gun blazing ever since.
No slowing you both down. How did you get into the industry, Jon?
After secondary school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest with you, but I always used to like playing computer games. So I noticed I think it was a BTEC National at the time at Wakefield College. And I think that was a 2-year course, and on that course, part of it was, I think, 2 weeks work experience to try and find somewhere. That's where I met Arden. We haven't looked back since, really. Strangely, I started off as a junior programmer. Arden was teaching me skills, but through growing the company, in his original company, it became apparent that it wasn't really my thing, and I wanted to move into other areas. So I started off more into project management back in the day, to where I am now, really.
Jonathan showed a trait that a lot of the graduates who come to us show, who have stayed with us, and that is they ask lots of questions. They're the right questions, so they're constantly learning and they quickly can progress through the ranks. And I think that's a really important skill when people are starting working anywhere, really. But, not to be scared of asking questions, because the quicker you learn and the quicker you find your feet, the more you can contribute.
You would think a graduate coming in asking a lot of questions about the processes that you do is good to have that inquisitive nature, but at the same time, sometimes you might potentially think, oh, why are they questioning what we're doing? But the amount of times I hear sort of studio heads and hiring managers saying, we want graduates to actually ask us questions, challenge the processes that we've got, and then help us improve. Happens quite a lot, actually. We've got quite a big side of our business, which is graduate recruitment, and constantly telling graduates that don't be afraid to ask questions. It might seem intimidating, but...
Yeah, we're a massive believer in communication.
We also have a saying that the first thing on induction we always say to new members of staff, junior or senior for that matter, is there isn't such thing as a stupid question. We know we've got like this great big infrastructure running, especially being part of a bigger company now and having our own custom built engine. There's a lot to take on. I think that sometimes maybe these graduates especially think, oh, well, I should know all this, where there's no way they can possibly know.
No.
It's not like go off and Google a lot of the things we do. It's exciting, but there's quite a lot also to get yourself up and running quicker. So I always like it when people are asking me questions.
We're always learning as well, which is good.
Sometimes those questions that people are a bit worried to say can lead to some interesting optimizations as well. And we've noticed that quite a lot. When you realise where someone's struggling with something, you think, oh, well, we could probably make that a bit better so that it's more intuitive.
And how did you get into the industry, Arden?
Oh, gosh. I started when I was 12. So basically, I desperately wanted a home computer in the 1980s. And the deal that I had was my dad bought me an Amstrad CPC and he says, you can have this as long as you pay for it. Originally, I started on a paper round and I started thinking, this is going to take me a long time to pay off this computer, and I want extra things like hard drives, and obviously games were expensive at the time, or they seemed expensive at the time. I was lucky that my granddad didn't want me playing games, so he encouraged me to help him write programs. He had to learn assembler to teach me assembler. So between us, we learned Z80 assembler, and then I realised that I could actually port games from Commodore 64 to Amstrad and Spectrums and use that money to pay for my hobby. When it came to leaving school, it always seemed natural that I should carry on writing games. So I just carried on. As I say, in 95, I took my first member of staff on, which was Jonathan, and the rest is history, so to speak. Just keep banging out the games.
Yeah, that's quite nice formative years.
Yeah.
Sort of general question for both of you, which bit of an odd one. If you weren't working at your studio or in your current roles and stay within your studio, what do you think you'd be doing?
Outside the industry, or?
It can be outside the industry as well, yeah.
You see, the thing is that my dad ran his own business, and so did his dad. So I never considered working for anybody. In fact, Chris and Jason, who own Rebellion, are effectively the first people I've ever worked for that have been part of the acquisition. So I don't imagine me working at anywhere else. But if it was outside the industry, I've always been interested in how things work. So I think it'd probably be something mechanical or electrical, but I'd like to think it'd be cutting edge.
Me personally, I think something like a quantity surveyor or something like that, still kind of a bit random maybe. But and the other thing what I've always been intrigued in, I like watching all the crime documentaries and stuff. I don't think I'm intelligent enough, don't get me wrong, but the CSI kind of side of stuff intrigues me as well.
Yeah, it's all quite process driven, isn't it? That makes sense. Yeah. And what doesn't have to be at Rebellion, it could be at TikTok or prior, but what's been the best project you've both been involved in?
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
I can find lots of different things.
For different reasons, isn't it, really?
Yeah, for different reasons. We did some stuff with Microsoft just before Jonathan started, where I went across to Seattle and worked with our engineers. That was rewarding in respect. I'd never been in that situation, and working on campus at Microsoft was quite exciting and different. Not that I want to do it for a living, but the current project we're working on got a new Switch game that we're working on with Rebellion, which is unannounced. I can't say it, but we've definitely knocked it out of the park this time in terms of what a Switch can do. I'm really excited for it to be officially announced so people can go, oh, wow. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the reactions are. So that's kind of cool. We used to work quite closely when we were working with TikTok with NVIDIA, working on the latest hardware pre-release. That was good. Rogue Trooper was exciting because we got to work on the Switch before that was released. So working on pre-release hardware, for me, it always pushes my buttons. As I say, I always find something in every project that I enjoy doing. What about you, John?
From a TikTok point of view, I think I agree with Arden. Working with NVIDIA closely, really exciting. Also in the TikTok era, we built up quite a lot of partnerships with different companies. Just before we got acquired, the project, what we're really excited is just going back to my boyhood, playing Football Manager. We did Football Manager on Stadia. Maybe not a lot of people know that. It wasn't just TikTok, don't get me wrong, but we were instrumental, I'd like to think, in getting that working. It was definitely in the launch window, if I recall. That was great.
Sorry, John, then with Double 11 as well. We did a lot of projects with Double 11. They were really great. The last one we did for them was Goat Simulator, ported to Switch. And that was a really difficult part in Unreal 3 to run on the Switch, because obviously the Unreal 3 had no concept of Switch hardware. No. So getting that thing crammed into a Switch was fun. There's no point at that time working with Double 11 where I thought, I could have been doing other things. It was, at that time, it was perfect for what we were doing. Great bunch of people to work with.
Another highlight was working with Funcom on a game called Lego Minifigures Online. I mean, it was great to see a game that was on PC only, and it was our first real experience of working with a team just outside of our studio, which is obviously what we do every day now at Rebellion North, but we was like as part of probably another 100 developers at Funcom, and in my opinion, it was a lovely game. I'd say that was another highlight. Going back to the Rebellion, we've worked on all sorts. Helped obviously on Zombie Army 4, what's been our big title this year. There's Evil Genius 2 coming soon, which looks beautiful. The stuff what's in the pipeline, what we know about, future's really exciting. Can't wait to let everyone know what else we're working on, really.
So that's the big shift really for us now. Although we're only working on Rebellion titles, to say they have a lot of IP and a lot of exciting projects coming up is the understatement of the year. And obviously they've got their fingers in so many pies. It's not just games, it's movies and board games and books and comics. So there's all these extra things around it. They encourage everybody to be involved in this conversation. So in that respect, at the moment, we're having time of our lives, really. It's really good. It's really hard to pinpoint one particular thing, if I'm being honest.
So. You're going to love the next question then. Slightly different, projects aside, your careers in video games, what would be the one career highlight, but something that makes you think, can't believe we did that?
It's a tricky one. Goat Simulator with Double 11, that was a big technical challenge, and that's what we thrive on. And, just from pre-Rebellion, when we were just TikTok, the amount of potential business opportunities what come from that obviously speaks testament to what we achieved, because just like Arden says, there was no such thing as a Switch when Unreal 3 came out. So, we had to basically create a driver for Unreal 3 and deal with all the problems, what comes with it, really. I'd probably say that, personally.
I mean, for me, again, it's like several things. I ran my first company, and in its time, it was quite successful. We gradually ran out of steam during the late 90s, early 2000s, just because of the economy. And out of that, we created TikTok. The founding principles of TikTok were to fix everything we did wrong. We spent a long time doing a postmortem on what we did wrong. And that set the foundations up for a really successful business. I mean, we grew TikTok organically. We kept a very, very tight team. We produced more projects. We learned how to handle having multiple projects all at the same time and moving people around. Keeping everything fresh and exciting for the staff were really important. Making sure that there was always a year's worth of salary before we took anybody else on. We learned all these little techniques. In the end, it was just a well-crafted business. It was our record year, the year we got acquired. But then we got acquired, so that was a bit of a career highlight because I've never done a successful acquisition before. But that was really good. And now, we're working on these new exciting stuff. So every year, we just have new things. So it's a bit of a kind of a wishy-washy answer, I guess, in some ways. But in other ways, it's like we work in the greatest industry, in my opinion. Who knows what's going to happen next year? It might be even more exciting.
Yeah, it's hoping. I mean, you've kind of covered my next point, which was how the company was founded, so Rebellion North /TikTok. So was that just the ethos then when you first started out of trying to learn from the first business and sort of like hit the ground running?
The only false start we did was Bubble did a lot of football games. And because it's what we knew, we started off trying to do an online football game. And because there were only a handful of us, basically, we weren't paying ourselves because we wanted to get that kind of business rolling. We were running out of money, so we thought, hang on a second, if we're going to keep this up, we're going to have to start getting paid work. It's a niche market, football games, especially with the competition. So what happened was we had to diversify. So we ended up doing a dance game for a company in America, for a healthcare company. And that kind of got us more interested in other things. So then we started to say, we'll do a bit mobile. So we did a bit of mobile. And then all of a sudden we found we were quite good at it because of our background with low-level coding at the time. You needed to be good at low-level coding for the hardware at the time to get the most out of it. So we started doing a lot of ports and things, going back to our roots. The thing I said I'd never do again, because we always wanted to create our own stuff. We did a lot of, and we got quite successful. So On the back of that, then we started doing more and more ambitious parts of games. As I say, we came full circle in the end, just with a better foundation. There was no point when we were on TikTok where I was laying in bed in the morning thinking, how are we going to get over this problem? It was, we got the right team, we got the right ethos and the right foundations. It just made running the company just amazing. When I started talking to Chris and Jason, it became pretty apparent that they shared the same kind of thinking as I did in terms of, like, stability is the most important thing. Staff want to be dying to get into work to do the work because it's exciting, not having to worry about things like if they miss a deadline and things like that. You need to protect your staff against that. I mean, obviously hitting deadlines is important, but producing top quality games is the most important thing. And they shared that same ethos, and the more I talked to them, the more I found that we had a lot more in common. So again, it just made it easy to think, well, if we're going to end up as part of this bigger group, these are the people you want to be with.
Well, that's a good culture to have. Although games are big business, the fact that people are excited to work on the projects that they're working on and actually can't wait to be in the office or working remotely or wherever they might be. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, of course, yeah. It's not about getting into the office now. It's about can't wait to get up in front of the computer to do some cool game code.
Yeah, or even do it in bed.
Yeah, in your pyjamas. We're living the dream.
So Rebellion North as a name is quite self-explanatory, being the most northerly studio. But where did the name TikTok come from?
Oh, you're going to love this. So when we were setting up the company, I was talking to one of the other founding directors, and we were desperately trying to think of a name for the company. And my wife came in and she says, come on, we need to go TikTok. And I went, that's it. And that's the real reason why we called it TikTok.
That's amazing.
Then we came up with we found there were loads of different ways we could call it. Everything runs like clockwork, TikTok, and we had loads of little strap lines, and TikTok playtime anytime was another one. That's really where it came from.
That's great. As the games industry in the UK, what are your general thoughts on the state of the industry at the moment? Kind of a broad question. Are you quite positive with what you've seen coming from lockdown? I'm
very positive. I mean, Jonathan mentioned that we're proud of the team here because we seamlessly went into lockdown. It didn't feel as though we'd lost any productivity at all. In fact, in a lot of respects, some people had more time in the day because they had shorter commutes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In the long term, we're still benefiting from the 1980s with the home game consoles. We still have a lot of people from that era in the industry who have grown up with the industry, and we're becoming more and more mature as an industry. I think it does give us an edge that you've got all these people who were just doing it for fun in the bedrooms, and they're now at higher level management now, passing that on to graduates and things like that. So getting a second wave in a way. I'm very upbeat about it. I think we should be seen as one of the best game developers in the world.
So what makes Rebellion North stand out compared to other studios?
Well then.
To me, we are masters of our own destiny. Thanks to Chris and Jason's hard work in the early days, we have our own engine, which means that we can do whatever we need to do in terms of technology. We have our own IP, which is constantly growing. We've got our own support structure as well, even things like motion capture studios. And now, of course, we've got the movie studios and all the extras that brings with it as well. Everybody's encouraged to voice their opinions on things, even if you're not directly involved in a particular area. That's encouraged, which is nice. But also what is even better is that Chris and Jason are still hands-on. They're there. They make the decisions. They sometimes cut through the blockers and things like that just by bringing their opinion and their experience. We're very unique, if I'm being honest. You don't realise until you get actually into the Rebellion family how big this family actually is.
So we've kind of touched on it a little bit with people being excited to come to work, encouraged to ask questions, but how would you best describe the culture at Rebellion North?
I think we've got a great culture personally. Like I said earlier on, Arden touched on it. We like to think of ourselves not just as work colleagues, but like friends as well. Try and socialise and go to the pub when we can, have team events. A big believer, again, I've said it before, I can't say it enough, communication. Anyone's got any issues at all, we're here to help each other, really. We succeed as a team and we fail as a team. And I think that runs throughout as company values, really.
Yeah. The one thing we don't want people coming to work is thinking, I've got this problem, who do I talk to about it? You don't want that.
No.
You want people to be able to just say, right, I'm struggling with this. Can we call a meeting and discuss different avenues? Can I have some different fresh perspectives on things? It's really good. When you've got a new member of staff and the first time, you always remember the first time they bring that up, you think, oh yes, they've got the message now. They know that they're safe, flagging things up so we can just get there and get these problems solved. Every member of staff we have, you always have that first moment when they do it and they feel a lot better afterwards. So
yeah, knowing they can actually speak to someone.
Yeah.
So speaking about your hiring process then, that was great for a segue. What does your typical hiring process look like? Obviously, it's probably in a bit of flux at the moment or changed slightly to what it was. But yeah, what does your hiring process look like? Sort of stage-wise tests? Obviously, it depends on the role, but in general.
It's quite interesting, actually, because with COVID-19, it hasn't really changed that much because we don't like to mess people around. So we've always tried to do things via, it was Skype, now it's Zoom. Do the interviews like that first before we get people over to see the studio. So in a lot of respects, doing it remotely hasn't been a bigger stretch as you might think. For graduates, we like to go across to see the universities. We've got a really good relationship with Newcastle University. And that gives us an opportunity to sit down with the graduates right early on and talk to them and like kind of understand what they're doing, and then we can follow on later with an interview. Just graduates in general, what we try to do is we try and dream up a little test for them to do in terms of a real world example of a problem we've had to solve, because it's a real world and not a scripted thing that's been designed to kind of catch anybody out, because it hasn't. We're just interested in how they approach the problem and how the code looks and whether we can work with them. It doesn't even have to be the most perfect solution. It's like, can we sit down with that person and get them working our way? That's what we do with graduates. We then follow it on with an interview. And again, normally Jon does the interview first, see whether we feel that they're fitting with the team. And then depending on the skill set, we'll pick a couple of people here and then we'll have a chat. We'll get them go through the code with them, make sure we know that they can handle the technical challenges that they are going to face when they come here. And then we give them the role. Now I'm speaking as a coder here because that's what I am by trade. What we're doing with the other disciplines is we're letting more senior people at the other studios help us out at the moment. You know, we've got the head of QA in Oxford and the head of art helping us build up a team at this site. We're very programmer orientated here. But at the moment, you know, that's our recruitment process. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Jon.
Now we're part of obviously the group. We actually have a team what's just job is deal with recruiting, you know, screening first. So we don't need to spend as much time going through some of the CVs as we used to. We've already got them screened before that. So, you know, so that's been great. From the art point of view, like Arden was saying, we don't really do any tests. Our head of art believes that the portfolio should sell itself, really.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What would you say at the moment? Obviously, you've mentioned that art and those kind of roles, you're getting assistance by your other studios in your group. But what would you say, specifically for code, if it makes it easier, what would you say are the big pluses at the moment you'd like to see from applicants? Is there something that jumps out, skills or experience or technical aspects wise?
I always look for a bit of creative thinking. You can normally see it right from the CV to the portfolio, to be honest. It's always nice to see that. Occasionally you see candidates where someone just pops out at you and then you can kind of drill down into the interview. It's always interesting the questions they ask as well. You know, we talked earlier about like candidates not being worried about asking questions. We've taken on for the first time 2 graduates this year. Both graduates asked some really interesting questions. It stands out in your head. It's always nice to see candidates who've got things finished, shows they know what's involved to get things from concept to shipping the game, whether it's a mobile game that they've done themselves or whatever. That sort of thing really shows that they understand the whole pipeline. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest game, but it means that they've managed to kind of have the discipline to get to the end of the project, whether that's in a team or individually. So that's kind of generically what I look for. It's always interesting when you're talking from a technical perspective, how they understand your question. Sometimes we've had people who answer the question succinctly straight away, and we've had other candidates who've got halfway through a question and like thought, hang on a second, I've got myself confused here. And when they go up and say, actually, I've got myself confused, can I start again? That's also good rather than just trying to fight to the end.
Muddle your way through it.
Yeah, because they've tried to kind of follow that through. So yeah, just understanding from a technical point of view that they understand the field, but not try too hard as well, because you see people are trying to show off and throw jargon in, and it just makes it too forced. It's always nice to have a natural conversation, allow the conversation to grow, and then learn to understand the candidate better that way. Is
there anything you particularly look for, Jon?
Well, from my point of view, like Alan says, mine's just from a persona point of view. You know, will they fit in the team, etc. I'll leave the technical side more to Arden and the other senior programmers, really.
What does your graduate hiring scheme look like? I know you said you've hired 2 this year. One, do you hire graduates regularly? And what does your sort of graduate hiring look like? Do you have like a buddy system?
We've actually hired more than 2 graduates. Just correct myself, 2 coding graduates this year.
Oh, right.
And we're going to take some art graduates as well, which we've got 1 so far, but I expect that to increase. We're very in favour of taking on graduates. That's not saying we're not looking for seniors. We are. We're going to put some job adverts up soon. We've just been waiting for some more space, which is why we needed to move into the new office. The thing I like about graduates is it's that creative thinking again. And there's a lot of opportunities to kind of mould them into that creative way of thinking early on. I like the fresh-faced, fresh opinion of the graduates. I like to build them up. I'd like to think they want to stay with us because there's a good career path at Rebellion. It's very easy to see for graduates. On the flip side, you need a good mix of seniors to make the number of graduates work. So yeah, very big fans of taking on graduates. We offer quite a lot. There's a lot of variety that we work on, especially with having our own engine, because effectively there's nobody there doing the heavy lifting for you when you're using Unreal or Unity. You've got to do it all yourself. So there's a lot of variety, a lot of fun things we can do.
So to go back to your original point, yeah, we're a strong believer in the buddy system as well.
Oh, yes, yeah.
It goes back to if got an issue, go and speak to one of your colleagues, and then, once it's sorted, then we put the code up for review. Review system, you can just flag as many people as you want, whether it be one or several, to just check what you've done, and then the senior people can then okay it, and if for whatever reason there's issues with it, they can respond accordingly.
We're big believers of, obviously this doesn't work as well when we're working from home, but we're also big believers of getting people into meetings. So graduates will find themselves in meetings pretty early on, so they can understand the words and the jargon that we're using. Because again, with having our own engine, we've got our own idioms and things like that, where it's good for them to soak in. They can find themselves quite early on in meetings where we're making decisions or trying to talk out problems, and where they might not be able to contribute initially. But again, it's really getting used to the conversation and realising that they can just talk through things. So we do that as well. We are doing it through Zoom, but sometimes certain things work better when you're in an office. So might you overhear somebody saying, I've got a problem with this, and we encourage people to walk over and say, now at a 2 metre distance, of course, say, oh, well, I had this problem and this is how we got around it. Again, we've simulated that quite effectively in Zoom, but it's not quite the same. It's getting people just to pipe up and say, can I call a meeting on Zoom?
Yeah, I get some people who are maybe not nervous to ask questions, but they're like, I can muddle through it. But yeah, I suppose it's easier to see in person if someone's struggling and go, I'll just go out of my way to give them a hand.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
So what does the future hold for Rebellion North?
Okay, so if you remember from talking earlier, currently we're very tech orientated. Part of the vision for Rebellion North, now we've got a new studio, which, just to give a bit more background on that, it's a studio what can handle probably up to 60 people comfortably. Currently there's 20 of us at North. Don't get me wrong, we don't want to ramp up aggressively. We believe in organic growth, so we get a chance to bed people in. So part of the plan is to become multi-skilled, which obviously goes without saying, building an art team, a QA team, design team, etc. We're slowly putting the things in place. I'm happy to announce that we've just hired a lead artist who starts with us in August. That should complement the small art team we already have at the minute. And we're currently recruiting for lead QA to basically build a team around. Short term, I think we'll just use the design skills from the group, which is a great thing about Rebellion. If we don't have the resource, we can just call upon someone who has, just like they call upon us for our tech resource if they need it. The mid-term plan is to basically own our own project, and for that to happen, we need to become multi-skilled, and can't wait, really.
Covered most of that pretty well. It's quite interesting. Obviously, one of the things that we talked about when we decided to move into this building was, obviously, we're a lot smaller than Oxford. We're looking at getting the same sort of balanced staffing levels that they have in Oxford, so we can tap into the rich seam of talent in this area, which is quite exciting in itself. We've used local companies to renovate this mill, which is quite amazing, even down to the flooring that was made 100 yards from where I'm sat now. It's nice that we're kind of contributing to the local community as well. I like to think that as we grow, as Jon said, the word organic is the word I use a lot with the team here. We'll only grow at what we feel that we can handle, the speed we can handle at, and some years we might go faster than others, because just getting the right people in place will dictate that. Again, it's about keeping that team feeling. So obviously growing fast, you're not going to get that team feeling. So finding the right candidates, finding the right talent, and just growing the team. We're lucky in that we've got the support of the other studios, so there isn't that much pressure on us to grow that fast and take on the ambitious projects that we've got planned, because we can borrow from other studios until the right people come into place.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice position to be in, where there's no sort of pressure of, if we don't get someone in this second, we're going to be lax on that side of design or whatever.
Yeah, definitely, that's right, yeah.
The other thing that I should point out, Jonathan mentioned about having projects to work on next, but we agree we do so much working on tech, can help out other projects when our colleagues in other studios are in the time of need. I like to think that we've got a skill set to kind of help them out, apply our creative thinking to solve problems in other studios as well. As we ramp up, we'll be ramping that up as well.
My interrogation is pretty much coming to an end. So is there anything else you want to promote?
Games Republic and Gamma did a lot for TikTok, especially in the early days, especially as far as graduates concerned. Like Gamma is a brilliant way of getting yourself heard about in the industry. Definitely worthwhile checking that out.
And I'd also like to thank yourselves really for the student showcase. Personally went a couple of years ago. I thought it was really good. You're definitely making a big effort in pushing the Rising Stars. Exciting times all around. There's some really good talent out there for all.
I would also say, in terms of plugging things at Rebellion North, I just want to plug Rebellion North basically. As I say, we're a small team at the moment. There's really exciting times ahead. I mean, there's a reason why we've got this bigger building. We're keen to grow the team. I like to think we're unique in that we're independent and that we're masters of our own destiny. And there's a lot to be said about that. You don't realise it until you're in that position. And I guess I didn't realise it until we got acquired, because obviously before that we were working on deadlines and milestones. You didn't hit milestones, you didn't get paid. But now, of course, it's different when you own the IP, the engine and everything. It's a game changer.
It must be nice, despite being acquired and you got all this sort of support to fall back on if you need it. It must also be nice to have or be trusted with a degree of autonomy as well.
Yes, it is, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'd like to think, obviously, because we've been working so closely with Rebellion for so many years beforehand, I'd like to think that was earned as well. Honestly, the people we work with are just a pleasure to deal with.
Thank you for listening to the Aardvark Swift podcast. This episode was hosted, produced and edited by me, James Bowers. If you have any comments or suggestions for the podcast, or if you'd like to feature on a future episode, please email james.b@aswift.com. Special thanks go out to Arden Aspinall and Jon Seymour for finding time in their busy schedule to speak with me. If you're looking to break into video games or make a transition to a new role, visit aswift.com where we have hundreds of industry vacancies both at home and abroad. With a large percentage offering remote hiring and remote working during the COVID-19 situation, there's nothing stopping you getting your dream role. Be sure to follow us on social media for the latest news and exciting vacancies. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook at Aardvark Swift, and we also have a behind-the-scenes Instagram account by the team at Life at Aardvark. The music in this episode is from Incompetech by Kevin McLeod. To learn more, please visit incompetech.com.